Hello and welcome to What Does the Giraffe Say with me, Kathleen Retourne. We are an organisation that aims to reconnect people with conservation efforts around the world by holding live interviews on social media. So welcome to today's show. Today I am very happy because I am being joined by Mark Louis Benedict, and he works for APE Malaysia, which is based in Borneo. So Mark, if I could just hand over to yourself, if you could tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you got involved in the organisation.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to say a very big thank you to you, Kathleen, for organizing this interview session. It's a big privilege to be on this session and to be able to share a bit about the work that we're doing in Malaysia, our organization, and also the project that I'm running in Sabah, Malaysia, Borneo. So basically, my background is in the tourism industry. I started off working as a tour guide in quite an established ecotourism company here in Sabah. It was a great experience because I had the opportunity to meet with people from diverse backgrounds, different nationalities, showcase to them, the natural wonders that we have here in the state of Sabah. And that experience also allowed me to travel quite extensively to most parts of my state. So from not just being in the rainforest, but being up to the highest mountain that we have in Borneo, to marine islands. And during this time that I was in the tourism industry, I was also a tourism trainer as well. So I train like tour guides, aspiring tour guides on workshops and courses to become tour guides. So my involvement with APE Malaysia came about somewhere around the year 2007, 2008, like that. At that time, I was already working as a field naturalist in an eco lodge in a place called the Kinabatangan River. So this area here, the Kinabatangan River, for me now, I consider this to be like my home away from home. It's like my second home. So I was based there for almost a year. And what I did was, okay, the Kinabatangan River pretty much is an area that is a hotspot biodiversity in Sabah. People all over the world, they come here mainly to go on a boat trip, like a boat safari, to be able to see all the endangered wildlife. So like the pygmy elephants that are endemic to this island, orangutans, wild orangutans, proboscis monkeys. So basically, this Kinabatangan River is okay. Yeah, okay. Since you have put this map up, I'll just quickly just show it through. For those who are not very familiar with these locations that I mentioned, right? I come from the island of Borneo. All right, so the island of Borneo is pretty much in Southeast Asia. I come from the northern part of Borneo, that is from a state called Sabah. So we are among one of the 13 states in the Federation of Malaysia. So this river, the Kinabatangan River, is located on the eastern part of Sabah. So we are at the northern part. This is on the eastern side. So this particular river is one of the longest rivers in Borneo. It's the second longest river in Malaysia. It's the longest river in my home state of Sabah. But this area is a tropical rainforest area teeming with biodiversity, teeming with wildlife. So with APE Malaysia, when I got into touch with them, that was around 2007, 2008, right? Basically, they came in to set up a volunteer tourism project that focuses on forest restoration and involves the local community. So this area, the Kinabatangan, even though it is very rich with biodiversity, at that period of time when I was there, it was also facing a lot of heavy environmental pressures, mainly caused by man-made activities. So there were still problems with logging, expansion of palm oil, and etc. So it was an opportunity that I couldn't miss to join APE Malaysia to set up this volunteer tourism opportunity so that I could work with the local communities and I can also set up the project for them. So it started something like that.
Okay, and you kind of touched on it a little bit before, but can you tell us about the threats to wildlife in Borneo and then how your project kind of tries to tackle this?
Okay, so basically there's definitely a few major threats to the landscape here in Borneo. So the loss of natural habitat is definitely on the top of the list. So the causes of the loss of natural habitat: first, deforestation. Okay. Secondly, is mainly because of agricultural expansion. We're looking at like palm oil, which is one of the major monocultures that are being planted here. And then thirdly is because of unsustainable infrastructure development. So like this picture that we have over here, this is one of like the forest restoration sites that we're working in Sabah, in Kinabatangan River. And as you can see, it's a very, there's forest and there's also palm oil. So everything that you see on your left-hand side, that all looks quite uniformly the same. Those are all palm oil, and those big gaps that you see there, that is the corridor, that's the forest that we're trying to restore back again to recreate connectivity. So this main threat that I mentioned just now about the loss of natural habitat, it is further compounded by the fact that because of this, we are also starting to face a lot of pressure with human-wildlife conflict. So the area, especially like, as you can see in this very tiny strip of corridor, it's adjacent to an ecotone, which is a palm oil area. It is being used quite a lot by large mammals. Like, for example, we have the Borneo elephant. So a lot of cases that we're having right now with human wildlife conflict involves larger mammals like elephants. So they do not have enough space to roam. They enter into the plantations, or they enter into local community areas where there are villages and stuff like that, and they can cause considerable damage. So basically, human-elephant conflict is quite a very big issue in Sabah. Like just about 2 weeks ago, we had quite a sad case where a Bornean elephant was found dead in a palm oil plantation, and they suspect that it is mainly caused because of poisoning and stuff like that. Because inside the palm oil area, they utilize quite a lot of chemicals and stuff like that. They could be, maybe stagnant waters or whatsoever. They might have drank on that. So, we face issues such as like this. And because of, forest fragmentation as well, okay, it also leads to, a rise in like poaching, hunting activities, and also the illegal wildlife trade. Yeah, so these are some of the major threats, I would say, to the wildlife in Borneo. So like our organization, we are involved quite a lot in trying to reconnect back very important forest corridors. We want to create ecological bridgeway for the animals to be able to cross between one area to the other. Like, for example, when we speak about animals such as orangutans, orangutans are totally arboreal animals. They do not spend a lot of time on the ground. They spend a lot of time on the treetops. But we have problems whereby a forest is here and a forest is here. But along this gap, there's nothing there. Animals will stop where they are. They're unable to cross. So we are trying to build that bridges. Because in the long run, even though we might have healthy forests in Borneo, we might have healthy forests in Sabah, but fragmentation, if it's not being solved, if we do not build these bridges, what we are going to be seeing is that this small island of the forest will not be able to sustain the wildlife in the long run. We're going to be looking at, loss of or reduced food resources, number one, and secondly, a genetic collapse, which will then lead to extinction. And that is something that we do not want to happen. So through our project, we focus a lot on forest restoration work to reconnect corridors. And in Malaysia as well, we quite recently have worked with or collaborate with other partners in areas where they are like highways crossing across very important forest areas. We built like rope bridges, but we are using fire hoses to allow primates to cross. So we do things like that as well. Yeah, so in our project also, besides the reforestation part of it, we put a lot of emphasis on education programs, mainly because we believe that the communities plays a very important role in conservation work.
For sure, yeah. I mean, you mentioned earlier about the orangutans, and I know that you also work with some other organisations helping in different sanctuaries with orangutans and also the sun bears. How do these animals typically end up coming to these sanctuaries, and also what kind of work are you then doing to help and support that?
Okay, so first of all, like our organization, APE Malaysia, we do not own or specifically ourselves run a wildlife rescue center or a rehabilitation center. But our organization, because we are quite well known in Malaysia in particular, to do a lot of work that involves animal welfare or wildlife welfare, we work in collaboration with one of our host organizations here in Sabah, our partners, that is the Bornean Sun Bear Conservation Center. So we have volunteer programs over there where we work behind the scenes to assist the center in terms of animal welfare, and also in helping the sun bears to be rehabilitated, the process of rehabilitation to be returned back into the wild. So a lot of the rescue centers that we have here in Borneo, in Sabah, all right, especially for orangutans and also sunbears, a lot of these animals, how they end up being in the center is because a majority of them are orphans. So how do they become orphan is mainly because of, you know, deforestation. Sometimes we get tip-offs of an orangutan that is found wandering, a young baby juvenile orangutan that is found wandering in a vast agricultural landscape that they have no place to go. So someone tip off and we rescue them, bring them into the center. Or sometimes it could also be cases like, for example, with the bears, the sun bears, we get people that illegally keep them as pets. So it is a big problem because a lot of people, they like, well, there's still this problem, especially in certain rural areas in Borneo, in Sabah, where people still do keep wildlife or endangered wildlife as pets. And whenever we receive any tip-offs like that, we will, you know, in Sabah, we have a very dedicated team called the Wildlife Rescue Unit. They're under our wildlife department. They are the main people that will go in to take these animals, confiscate these animals, bring them into these centers, and then they will go through the rehabilitation process. And another thing that is also quite interesting to touch about the sun bears also is that they are heavily traded in the illegal wildlife trade. So, you know, like our location being in Southeast Asia, we are very much close to a lot of countries that are still using traditional Asian medicines. So the sun bears, quite a lot of parts of their body, especially their bile, is being used in traditional Asian medicine. So a lot of these animals are being rescued from all of these different circumstances. They're being brought into the center, and then our organization, together with our partners, we work in trying to get these animals to be rehabilitated and returned back into the wild. So we not only work with one specific center like the Sun Bear Conservation Center, but in Malaysia, we do also organize a lot of projects, not just with wildlife rescue centers, but also with zoos. So our main role is always trying to find ways how we can improve animal welfare for animals in captivity. So we do a lot of knowledge-based training, and then also enrichment activities. Like these photos that you're seeing is all volunteers in various different zoos, rehab centers. Is a collation of all of this, where we are, you know, doing a lot of enrichment items for animals that are in captivity that might have very minimal chance to be returned back into the wild.
And with the enrichment, I mean, I did a lot of that with chimpanzees in Zambia, but for those back home that aren't quite sure what that means, what does the enrichment do to help give the animal a better lifestyle in captivity?
Okay, so basically, for a lot of animals that comes into, like, let's say, rescue centers where they probably are not in the stage yet to go inside the forest enclosure or to return back into the rainforest, enrichment plays a very important role in trying to stimulate natural behaviors as much as possible. Like, for example, in a lot of centers, sometimes foods are just being put inside a tray and is being given at the same time, at the same place to that animal. So they come up to this routine of, you know, oh, there's food there, I'll just go over there and come back again. But if we provide certain stimuli in terms of, you know, like making toys or using fire hoses to make hammocks and things like that, or maybe hiding some food inside bamboos or whatsoever and hang it inside the enclosure, it will help to stimulate the bears to use all of their parts of their body, or the orangutans, to be able to search the food here and there, to you know, to stimulate the natural behavior. Because we see with a lot of captive animals problems with what we term as pacing. So they keep, you know, like back and forth, or just, you know, doing the same circles time and time again. These are behaviors that you will never see in the wild with an animal that is, you know, in the free environment. But in captivity, this is always the problem that we face. So what we try to do is to reduce this stress. We try to reduce this pacing and all of this kind of unnatural behavior by providing as much enrichments for the animals, which will also be very important as one of the stages before, you know, we can slowly reintroduce them back into the rainforest, which eventually will be the ultimate goal.
For sure, yeah. I think we've got a couple of your past volunteers actually commenting as you're talking here, Mark. So we've got Margaret Spelling saying she was so privileged to be part of this project. And we've also got Cassie Klein, who's commenting on the picture, I think on the one that we've got now, saying that that's her in the photo.
Yeah.
And we've also got Sue Clark coming up saying that planting trees and traveling with you is one of the most memorable experiences. And she's saying you're an inspirational guy, and APE Malaysia do a fantastic job.
Thanks, Sue.
Now, when we were talking earlier about the corridors and the wildlife corridors and things like that, I know a big thing for you is tree planting. Well, to the extent that I know it was your birthday recently, and your wife actually got you some more trees to plant. Can you talk to us a little bit about this side of the project and why you're so passionate about it?
Okay, basically for me, the Kinabatangan River is a very special place. And why I say it's very special is because this is the area that for the very first time I got to see a very rich diversity of wildlife. It's also a place where I got to interact with the local communities. And the thing that is always quite saddening is that the Kinabatangan River, even though how rich of a biodiversity of an area it is still a place that is still under threat. So in the days before it was turned into a protected wildlife sanctuary, which it is right now, totally protected, no encroachment, no illegal logging. But when I was there last time, you still get to see raft of logs floating down the river. You know, there was still expansion of palm oil at a period of time. There was still forest clearing being done in the form of open burning. So we lost a lot of natural spaces or natural habitat for the wildlife at a period of time. So when APE Malaysia came in to start out this volunteering program, and it involves the local community, I took it at a great heat to try to get local communities to be involved and to start planting the forest. Because like I've mentioned previously, our main aim is to reconnect back these important stretches of forest. Because if we are unable to do that, then the animals will always stay in that island, and eventually genetic collapse will happen, extinction is looming. So what we're trying to do is to be able to plant trees, a lot of native tree species that are unique to the Kinabatangan area. We reconnect back these corridors to allow the wildlife to be able to cross and reach to another larger area of the forest. And at the same time of us doing that, we are able to also get as much local communities to be involved. Like, for example, through our volunteer tourism project in the Kinabatangan area, we were able to get more than 20 over families to benefit from the project. So this comes with hiring of the local guides, to hiring of local boats from the local people, so they will be bring us out on boats, and then at the same time, food and stuff like that, we contract it out to the local communities. And all of the saplings that, like on these pictures that you're seeing, all of these saplings comes from the local nurseries in the village. So we started out with just 3 or 4 families in the beginning of the project back in 2008, 2009. But now we have like more than 20, 25 families that are fully participating in the project. Yeah, so some of these pictures that you're seeing here are, pictures of volunteers that are working with us in the rainforest. So to be honest with you, the work in the rainforest, like what they are doing, is not easy. Imagine this is a tropical rainforest with very high humidity. Temperatures even during daytime at 8, 9 can reach up to almost 30 plus degrees Celsius. So they are really giving that 100% effort to our cause. So all of these trees are trees that are about a year old that we have already planted within the gaps of those forests. So a majority of these gaps that is quite evident here is mainly because most of these parts of this forest are areas that used to be where, in the early days of logging, especially along the Kinabatangan River, this is the places where the big timbers used to be piled. So what has happened is that the whole soil condition, because of the constant amount of, it's like what we term as a stumping point or a logging stump point, all of these big timbers were kept there for long periods of time before they were hauled down to the river and float out into the sea to be brought to the nearest port for export. So what has happened is that because these timbers have been there for a very long time, the soil has degraded so badly that the topsoil, which contains the most nutrient-rich humus and everything like that, has already been swept away. So what we're seeing is that if we do not have like human intervention in places like this, it will just retain as being empty, void of any natural forest cover. And that is what we have seen in places like that. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, what would you say? Have you got a favorite success story of seeing something like come from nothing to grow?
Yeah, I would say like this picture that you have right now on the slide. This is one of our success stories. I mean, like this area used to be just full of grasses. We have a certain species of grass here. We call it lalang. Scientifically, it's Imperata cylindrica, but it's a kind of grass that grows in quite open areas. Uh, it's just grasses with, it's not being eaten by any wildlife and things like that. So what has happened is that that area there is just full of grasses, void of any natural forest cover. We started planting trees there, and after 5 years, we're starting to see that the trees that we have planted are starting to grow, and they are starting to grow higher than the people that are planting them, and that's a very, very big achievement. Yeah, and I think for me personally, in 2016, like we always have this kind of like motivation. Sometimes when we're working in the rainforest, planting trees on hot environment, when you're sweating, and it's so tired, digging, planting the trees. So that sometimes you come to a point of realization, and you tell to yourself that one day, I hope these trees that I plant will grow big, and an orangutan will be using those trees. So we had it in 2016 for a very first time, a site that we first planted around 2011, like that. So the tree is about 5 years plus old. They are about 4 or 5 meters high. That was the first site that we have ever recorded of an orangutan using it. And that for me is a very big achievement. So how do we know that orangutan is actually using it? Is because we saw an orangutan nest up on the treetop. Yeah.
Amazing.
So when I came on the ground to have a closer inspection, it was not just one nest, but it was two nests. It was a larger nest, which definitely is the mother, and there's a smaller nest just next door to it. So it's a mother and a juvenile, most likely, that last time they might not be able to cross, but now they are using the trees that we have planted. They've even built a nest up there to be able to cross to the other side of the forest. So that for me personally is a very big achievement. Yeah,
For sure. I mean, it totally proves that what you're doing is working, and the wildlife is coming back. When you were saying earlier about your work with the local communities, have you seen a change in attitude towards wildlife since you've been working on this project? Do you think the younger generation are coming through a bit more kind of passionate and wanting to preserve their natural heritage? Any changes you're seeing here?
Yeah, I will say like the project site that we are working at the moment. It's a village called Sukhao. The local communities that are staying here, they come from an indigenous tribe that have been staying in this river for like generations. So they are known as the river people, or in our language, they're called the Orang Sungai. So these communities in the early beginning, they were not very much, I would say they were not very much involved in conservation. They were not very much open as well, or very receptive towards ecotourism or tourism in general. We used to have a bit of difficulties in engaging in them during the first initial start of the project. But nowadays, I will say that it has totally changed. A lot of the local communities in this village are very proactive in conservation. And we get to see them, like, for example, some of our local staff that are working with us as part of our forest restoration team. These are the youths that used to join some of our school education program, but they are now either like local guides in the village, or they're local boatmen. So there's a lot of involvement in what we term as community-based tourism, and also in conservation in the form of forest restoration work. And like this place that we are working as well, we are not like the only organization that is based there. There's a couple of other quite well-known organizations that are doing research work on orangutans, on elephants, and a lot of the local communities are involved as research assistants or research officers, or even like community wildlife wardens, so they help to protect or do enforcement. So there's a lot of involvement of the local communities in conservation, which is very good to see. And I would say, like in general in Malaysia also, I'm pretty impressed with the youths of nowadays, that we're starting to see a lot of the younger generation that are, pursuing things such as, like, environmental courses, conservation biology. So there's a lot of young generation Malaysians that are very much involved in, trying to make that difference. And I think that is very important as we are moving, forward, in this industrialization kind of age, as we're moving forward, as Malaysia is moving from, becoming a developing country to becoming a developed nation. We need to have this younger generation that is much more aware, of environment and sustainability side of it as well. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds great that you've got this kind of positive attitude coming through. We can't talk about anything at the minute with 2020 without mentioning like COVID and the impact it's been having. Has it kind of put any problems into your work? Can you see any positives to it? What's your kind of take on the situation?
Okay, I'll say, like, COVID came at a very wrong time. I mean, like, this year, 2020, we had a lot of things planned to be done. We managed to get some things done in the first quarter of the year. Then, COVID happened, the lockdown in Malaysia and stuff like that. But some of the big challenges that I'll say that we face is that our organization relies a lot on participation of volunteers into the project. And through volunteers participating into the project, we are able to generate funds that is able to go back down to the local communities. So, like I was referring earlier, hiring of local guides for our volunteer tourism project, hiring of local boats, eating in local houses, the meals, and all of this. A lot of local communities now, mainly because there is almost zero tourism activities in the area that we're working, most of them have lost a very important source of income. So it's a very big challenge. And like for organizations like us, we are fortunate that we have a small team that is still able to go into the rainforest to plant trees and to maintain the trees to ensure that they can grow well. But this is also because we are receiving external funding for that particular team. But we are unable to get more of the locals to be involved, which is only something that our project wants to do. Because, without community involvement, conservation projects will not be successful. And because of COVID also, it has caused that to happen. So like our organization, APE Malaysia, we rely a lot on volunteer funding for that. So we had to kind of come up with an alternative of, how could we still raise funds? How could we still plant trees? And at the same time, use those funds to involve the local community. So one of the things that we are doing at this period of time is we have set up an initiative called RAW, the RAW initiative. So this RAW initiative, it stands for Restore Our Amazing Rainforest. So what it does is that areas of the forest that our volunteers that used to come every month in our project, they used to maintain the trees, they used to plant in those sites. Now, because they are not there already, we are unable to continue our work. But through the RAW initiative, okay, we're able to raise funds to buy the saplings from the local people's nursery, and we're able to get the locals to plant the trees in sites that our volunteers used to take care. So that means we are still able to continue the work, but we have to use this method now. So for anybody who would like to support our project, we would like you to help us out in planting more trees in Borneo. You can help us to support our RAW initiative.
And how can they do that? Is there a website that they can go on and like donate for some trees or anything like that? Okay,
there's actually a photo that I shared. If you could find one that has that RAW initiative, yeah, there's our website there. Our website is quite simple. It's just www.apemalaysia.com. If you click onto that website, we have a tab, Plant a Tree, and you'll be able to plant a tree in Borneo through our RAW initiative by buying trees from over there. So In this raw initiative, the trees are just at about 20 Malaysian ringgit. So what does it involve is that we will plant the tree for you, and for 1 year, we will take care of the tree. Because the thing about planting trees in the rainforest is that, you can plant anything in the rainforest. They will grow slowly, but they will face a lot of obstacles as well. So, things like weeds and grasses, they will definitely grow faster than the trees that we have planted. So our team will come up to 3 to 4 times in a year during the first year to ensure that the trees that have been planted will grow big. So under the raw initiative, one tree is just about 20 Malaysian ringgit. So that's, I think, about $4. So one tree, 1 year maintenance, and we will provide an e-certificate, all right, a GPS location of where the trees are being planted along which stretch of the corridor in the Kinabatangan River. And we will also provide you a list of the trees that you have planted as well. And normally, maybe every 6 months or so, we will update you on email. You might see my face appearing saying thank you to all of you for planting the trees, but we will update you on the progress of the trees that you have planted in Borneo. So you can look at this as a way to, offset your carbons, or, give it as a gift to someone, yeah.
Yeah, and what a great gift to give, is to give someone something that's going to make a difference to generations to come.
Indeed, yeah, and for the wildlife as well.
Exactly. So I've only got one more question left. And if people back watching at home, wherever that may be, if you've got a question that you'd like to put to Mark, and pop it in the comments section, and I will do so. We've had lots of lovely comments coming through. We've had Peter Lau coming through saying it was wonderful to have the opportunity to see him work with you, and he's looking forward to being part of your projects as soon as the situation permits. And we've also had Sabine Bresser saying that she can only support all what Peter just said, and she misses all her friends from APE Malaysia and the BSBCC.
Thanks, Sabine. Thanks, Peter. To see you all in Stockholm.
Okay, so my question, when we were talking virtually before, you were saying that your motto is to be the change that you want to see. What changes do you want to see, and how are you going to fulfill your motto?
Okay, yeah, that motto, I hold it quite dearly to myself, mainly because I feel like, each and every one of us living in this planet, all of us has our own individual role to play. So you do not need to be, like a PhD holder. You do not need to be a scientist. You do not need to even work in the field of conservation to make a difference. Each and every one of us can make a difference wherever we are. So, that motto is something like what I always tell to like school children. Like, for example, like whenever we conduct education programs, that the only way that you can conserve or protect something like a wildlife, for example, is if you love it. So in order for you to love that animal, you will first need to understand it. But in order to understand, you need to learn about it first. So it's a progress. You learn, you understand, you will love, and you'll be able to protect. So, irregardless of where we are in any parts of the world, each of us have, our own role to play in protecting our environment and our landscape to make it a better place for everyone.
Sure. And I know that you have children as well. What are your hopes for their future?
Well, I hope that, one day they'll be able to join me out on my forest restoration project. My daughter has joined, but she's still a bit young when she went there. So she's a bit like, scared of mosquitoes and the leeches in the rainforest. My son, I have 3 children, by the way. I have my daughter is 7, my second is 5, and I have a young son that is 3. So the youngest haven't been there yet, but both my daughter and son has been down to the river. They're still too young, I would say, but my hope is that whatever that I am seeing at this moment, whatever that I'm experiencing at this moment, whatever that I'm enjoying at this moment, my children will be able to see it when they are also already big. And that is one of my main missions and one of my main goals, that, all these good things that I'm seeing in my generation of time should still be there for my children 20 years later. and for their children's children as well. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's a good ethos. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap up now. As I say, we've had some incredible comments coming through saying that you're doing an incredible job. There's lots of support out there. So if you're not familiar with APE Malaysia and you're watching this, then please do check out their Facebook pages. Mark, if you could comment on the page afterwards so that people can then get the link to your pages and any other links that you want. Also, if you're watching this and you're not watching it live, you're watching it later on and you still want to ask a question, please do so. Just pop it in the comments and either Mark or myself will get back to you. So before we say goodbye, Mark, is there anything that you want to finish with?
Yeah, so I would like to say a very big thank you to all of our volunteers, both at our Sun Bear project, because we are working very closely with the Borneo Sun Bear Conservation Center. So all of them that have participated in the project, and also for those that have helped us out in our forest restoration project in the Kinabatangan River, very big thank you for all your help, your support, all this while, for planting the trees and for helping us out in our rehabilitation efforts. And I would also like to say a very big thank you to our funders from the US, especially those from the Association of Zoos and Aquarium, the Kansas City Zoo, Stacia, Henry Vila Zoo, Como Zoo, for all of their support in all the various kinds of collaborative projects that we have done across the years, including the one that is now running in Sabah, that is our CRATE team, our corridor restoration for animals threatened and endangered. So all of this will not happen if it's not because of everyone that have supported us so far. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you, Mark, so much for coming onto the show, and thank you everyone for tuning in wherever you are in the world. If you want to listen and watch any other live conservation interviews, then please check us out on Facebook. We are What Does the Giraffe Say Media. We've got quite a busy month coming up with people from all over the world discussing their projects, everyone doing their little bit to help conservation. If you're watching this as well, please like, comment and share, help spread the word of the work that APE Malaysia and Mark are doing. The more people that are aware, hopefully the bigger the difference that we can make. But for now, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.